What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Rough Drafts, where I go deep each week on a specific topic in the current limited format, which is Final Fantasy. My name is Sam Pratt, and today I'm going to be talking about blue cards, specifically the card Sahagin, which I have no idea if I'm going to pronounce that correctly. I'm rolling with Sahagin because I tried to Google it, and it was extremely inconclusive. So that's what we're going with. Please don't get mad at me. So I was very fortunate last week to be able to play in the early access event. And I walked away from that event feeling pretty high on blue. And I talked to some other people who had played or watched, and they agreed that they liked blue. They had really good experiences with the card Sahagin, which, spoiler alert, I don't think is a top blue common. I think it is a very solid common, but I think it's a good example of the types of things that I'm going to talk about today. And I think after the first couple days of the actual format, not just early access, things are pointing to me that blue is the best color in this format, though I don't think it's by a ton. With the very, very small sample size data we have, if you look at the deck win rate page, so like how well is Azorius doing, how well is Dimir doing, two color decks are performing at 58% win rate for the aggregate player base, and all four of the blue decks are performing above that bar, which is not true for any of the other colors. So that is pointing me towards the idea that blue is the best color. Now, I don't know how much that actually means in this format. Like, play boosters have kind of changed the way that we evaluate colors and cards. And I think along with that means bringing the power level of each color in a given format closer together. And I think this format is pretty balanced. So I'm not trying to say anything extreme here, but I do think that formats in which blue is a very strong color shake out to be pretty unique. I want to go through kind of a history of Arena era limited blue. So this episode is going to be two parts. It's going to be that I'm going to go through what makes blue a good color when it's good in limited. And then I'm going to go dive deep on the blue cards that we have available to us in Final Fantasy. So let's talk about kind of a history of blue as the best color in limited. So formats where blue is quote unquote the best color or one of the strongest colors to me feel a little bit special. In part because blue is usually underdrafted or misdrafted in general, just by the general player base. So blue always gets decent interaction, like counter spells, bounce spells, and also always gets good card advantage. So these are the kind of things that per the color pie, blue exclusively gets, especially in limited formats. So that would be, again, counter spells, bounce spells, card advantage. In sets where blue is weaker, these cards are still usually the good blue cards, and blue is usually still good in the hands of top players, even if blue is maybe the worst color in a format. Blue in general is the color where the data changes the most between top users and the general population. So if you didn't know this, you can go to the 17 lands card rating page and you can sort by just top players. And blue tends to shift a lot between top players and medium and low players. Just the types of cards that perform well in the hands of different skill levels of players. Not trying to like gatekeep blue or anything. I'm just kind of stating the facts here and also trying to make the point that I think blue is often misunderstood why it's good and when it's good. So like I said, blue always gets good spells in interaction and card advantage. What blue doesn't always get is good creatures. And this to me is the dividing line between blue being a medium to poor color in a limited format or a good to great color in a given format. So when blue gets good creatures on top of its good spells like interaction and card advantage, that's really what pushes it over the top because it's kind of like a color pie break. Like blue, if its creatures are especially good, it gets to perform outside of its color pie slice a little bit because blue's not supposed to get good creatures. And when blue gets good creatures, this is when blue's allowed to play stuff like assertive mid-range decks, full-on tempo decks. You just get to play like good rate creatures. You get to back it up with great card advantage, etc. So I'm going to go through a couple formats and talk about this. The first one I'm going to talk about is Midnight Hunt, which I think is probably the format in which blue has been the best in the arena era of limited Magic. So I'm going to try to frame this in a way that's listenable for people who did not play this format, but people were all in on this blue-black zombies deck in Midnight Hunt. It was very, very strong. It was definitely the best deck in the format. But the general population identified the outlier in this deck to be black. Black was a good color. It had 3 really good removal spells at common, which people kind of lost their mind for, and missed the fact in general that blue was absolutely cracked in Midnight Hunt. So it had Organ Hoarder, and I will read a couple of these. Organ Hoarder was a 4-mana 3/2. You look at the top 3 cards of your library. You get to pick 1 into your hand, and the rest go into the graveyard. If you played with Sig Appraiser in Tarkir, it's like that, but better because this set had like way more flashback and disturb stuff that you could cast out of your graveyard. So a very good value creature, and it also had these things that were decayed tokens, which were like zombie tokens that died after you attacked with them and they couldn't block. And I think Wizards in general kind of missed the mark too high on these decayed tokens because they ended up being very, very desirable game pieces. And they just kind of tacked them onto a bunch of spells that blue already gets. And it really juiced the rate on all of these. So there was like Revenge of the Drowned, which was like a top or bottom spell, but you also got a zombie token. There was Falcon Abomination, which was a Wind Drake, a 3-mana 2/2 flyer that came with this decayed token. So this extra rectangle really juiced a lot of these blue cards and made blue able to play this very good, like assertive mid-range deck in that format. And like I said, I think that's what tipped blue over the edge. Like Organ Hoarder as a value creature was fantastic, but really the thing that was pushing blue way over the edge in that format was the fact that not only did it get its already on-rate spells like the top or bottom spell, the counter spell, cheap-ish flyers, it also was getting these assertive tokens that it was using to end the game. A similar situation was March of the Machine. Now, March of the Machine didn't have like a specific above rate token like Midnight Hunt had. It did have Preening Champion, which was a 3-mana 2/2 flyer that came with a 1/1 token. It's like one of the best commons we've ever gotten in the Arena era of Limited. It worked with like every blue archetype. There was like a Convoke strategy. And blue also just got a bunch of above rate spells. Like there was a very, very efficient bounce spell. There was a really good card draw spell with Convoke in that format. Some other stuff that I won't go into. Blue and March of the Machine had a very good blue-white tempo deck, which is unusual for blue. Like blue playing tempo is not anything new, but it doesn't always get to do that consistently in Limited. And also had very strong mid-range decks where it was just playing like good creatures. It had like this crazy battle in blue-black. So that was another format where blue, the rate on the creatures especially, with like Preening Champion, and there was a card called Eyes of Decataxius that came with a rectangle, that were all just a little bit above rate, and that really juiced blue to be the best color in that format. I'm going to touch on 2 more formats. One was Lord of the Rings, where blue was technically not the best color in that set. It was definitely black, but black was so overdrafted and blue was so misunderstood that there was a span of a couple weeks where all of the top players were playing blue because the blue decks were so good and black was so overdrafted. So the thing in Lord of the Rings that blue was leveraging was it was able to use ring tempting better than any other color, at least in my opinion. So it had like a ring tempt cantrip. If you don't know what ring tempting is, don't worry about it. You can think of it kind of like a rectangle, kind of like how in Midnight Hunt, blue was given all of these above rate spells that came with this token. In Lord of the Rings, blue was given all of these above rate spells because it came with this extra mechanic that came with it. And then the other format where I would say blue was the best color that in recent memory was Lost Caverns of Ixalan. Blue got Waterwind Scout, which was a 3-mana 2/2 flyer that came with a map token. It had some very good artifact synergies. Like there was a 2-mana 1/2 Vigilance Flying Mana Dork for artifacts. And I will point out a lot of these spells that I am touching on that were highlights of blue in these formats are creatures. They're not like, oh, blue had a busted counter spell. Oh, blue had a busted card advantage spell. It's, oh, blue got this 2/2 flyer with something else tacked on. Oh, blue got this really good 2-drop in Oaken Siren and LCI. And we just saw in Tarkir, blue, which you could make a case for blue as the best color in Tarkir. Not that it mattered that much, which I think Final Fantasy might be similar. Like blue got Sig Appraiser in Tarkir, and that card was awesome. Just a 3-drop, like totally reasonable body, came with a lot of value, put stuff in your graveyard. So it's really about the creatures that pushes blue from doing what it normally does to doing something better than the rest of the colors, kind of going above and beyond. And I think there is definitely some of that going on in Final Fantasy, which I will get into later, and Sahagin is definitely part of it, but not the main thing. The other part I wanted to touch on in this kind of loose history of blue in Arena Era Limited is that blue tends to get underdrafted by the general drafting population, or at least when they catch up, a lot of times drafters will misunderstand what the good blue cards are. A good example is if you go to the data for Midnight Hunt and you sort by ALSA, which is average last seen at, which is just kind of a measure of how high is everyone taking this card. You have to go down 6 spots to get to Organ Hoarder. Like, I think there's like 3 black removal spells ahead of Organ Hoarder, which Organ Hoarder was absurd. Like, it should absolutely be the best common by a pretty clear margin. At least that's how I remember it. People tend to overrate cards like medium flyers, like cards that look like just plain Windrakes. So in Midnight Hunt, again, there was a 4-mana 3/2 flyer that you could recast out of your graveyard or something. It was called Gale Drifter. And that card was drafted way too high. A lot of times the tap spells, again, Midnight Hunt had Locked in the Cemetery, which was really bad. People see those as removal and take them higher than they should. I think the most misdrafted blue has ever been was Lord of the Rings. If you look at the average last seen at for blue uncommons in Lord of the Rings, Gandalf and Saruman are the top cards, which were like kind of like not very good cards. Like Gandalf was okay. But then like Saruman's Trickery, which was this counter spell that came with a 1/1 zombie, is one of the highest game in hand win rate uncommons we've ever seen in the like history of 17 lands, and both of these kind of middling legendary creatures were getting taken over it. So that also kind of contributes to this air of, I don't know, mystery, uniqueness that sets have when blue is the strongest or one of the strongest colors. Because not only do you get like kind of absolutely hooked up by good blue cards, but blue getting good creatures also changes the gameplay quite a bit. Like turning on tempo decks consistently or like assertive blue mid-range decks kind of changes the texture of gameplay too. And to be honest, the gameplay in this set has been kicking my ass. Like I've been noticing myself making a lot of mistakes. So I'm going to use that as a point to transition into talking about blue in Final Fantasy and actually get to the point that I'm trying to make overall. I don't really know how good blue is. Like I said, the data is pointing in that direction. I'm pretty confident that it is in this direction. I really do not think it is in the tier of March of the Machine or Midnight Hunt, where it was just like the clear best color. But I do think it's slightly the best color in this format. I think that's how it's going to shake out. And I think the format is going to be pretty balanced. So I just wanted to do huge caveat. I did a history of all the times blue was absolutely cracked in half. Don't think it's going to be like that. I wanted to point out the unique things in those formats that make those formats that way. So let's talk about Sahagin. I haven't read the card text. This is a 1 blue, 1/3 Merfolk Warrior. Merfolk is actually relevant in this set for 1 card. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, if at least 4 mana was spent to cast it, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature and it can't be blocked this turn. This really looks like the type of card that would not perform well. We've had other cards that look like this, kind of the 1/3 that grows or like cheap blue creature that grows on a certain trigger. And they've usually been really bad. The difference in this format is they have designed the set in a way to help this mana value 4 non-creature spell archetype play out more naturally due to a lot of different things they've seeded into this set. So you kind of just trigger this over the course of the game by playing a normal game of Magic, assuming you've done some light deck building. The ways to trigger it. One is tiered spells. So just take Ice Magic, for example. Ice Magic is 1 in a blue, instant. Return target creature to its owner's hand, or you can pay 3 in a blue. Target creature's owner puts it on the top or bottom of their library. That has this like 8 mana mode that you shouldn't activate. These spells, along with like Thunder Magic, which is like shock that turns into 4 mana deal 4. These types of spells help you trigger this mechanic without needing to fill your deck with a bunch of mana value 4 spells or greater. This should be fairly obvious if you've like played the set a little bit. It's pretty clever. There's also flashback. So there's a card called Dreams of Laguna, which is a think twice variant. It's 1 in a blue instant, surveil 1, draw card, flashback for 4 mana. So the flashback triggers it. There's a card, another blue common called Retrieve the Esper, which is 4 mana, make a 3/3 artifact token, and then you can flashback for 6 mana. I really like this one. It's not like the strongest card ever, but being able to trigger your mana value 4 stuff twice from 1 card is really good, and the bodies are just good enough there. This mechanic also triggers off, Syncopate, which is X blue instant, counter target spell unless they pay X, and then you exile the spell. So if you pay X is 3, it triggers it. And then, equipment job select is in this format. You'll have some job select equipment in red or white that will trigger this if it's mana value 4. So Sahagin, the condition looks like it wouldn't work in most limited formats, but they've designed it in a way where it does. It grows over the course of a normal game of Magic. And I'm going to do an insane comparison because I like doing this. It's like Tarmogoyf. It's just a really good mid-range creature where it starts really small. You only need 1 trigger to get it above rate. 2 mana, 2/4 is fantastic. And it grows from there and can really not take over the game. But I've found when I'm casting Sahagin, especially in multiples, they just kind of sit there and dissuade attacks. And then all of a sudden, when I turn the corner, if I can trigger it multiple times over the course of a couple turns, it just kind of kills the opponent because of the unblockable trigger that it gets too. It's at its best in blue-red. You get Thunder Magic, like I said. Call the Mountain Chocobo, which is 4 mana, red card. Make a bird token, and then you get a mountain out of your deck, and it has flashback for 6. This is kind of like Retrieve the Esper, where you can cast it twice. And of course, this should be obvious. The blue-red archetype is mana value 4 non-creature spells. But the way that this set is designed, Sahagin is more of just a generic blue card to me. If you are a heavy base blue deck, you should have cards like Syncopate, Dreams of Laguna, Retrieve the Esper, some more things that uncommon, etc. And you're kind of just naturally going to fulfill this trigger. Sahagin is really a blue card to me, more than it is a blue-red card. So I think it's really good in base blue, blue-black, for instance. If you are in the other color more as a base and blue is kind of your secondary color, so let's say you're blue-white artifact beatdown, Sahagin is not going to perform well there unless you have a ton of equipment or vehicles in the mana value 4 spot. It's really more of a base blue deck blue card. And I don't even think it's a top common. I think it is worth noting that I think this is a good, very solid blue 2-drop, and blue often gets no good 2-drops. So that's really the central theme of this episode is blue looks exceptional in this format because it gets good creatures. I think the most important card for blue in this set at common is Dragoon's Wyvern. This is 3 mana, 2/1 flyer, comes with a 1/1. Calls back to Preening Champion. We knew this card was going to be good. I think it's excellent. It's so good with equipment in this set. Just making 2 bodies to equip onto. You really, this does everything you want. This is the exact type of card that is an above rate creature that really pushes blue over the edge into kind of a medium color that just plays to its strength to doing something exceptional kind of outside of its color pie. Another creature I want to mention, I don't think this card is stellar. I think it's a little worse than Sahagin. It's Scorpion Sentinel. This is a 2 mana artifact in blue. It's a 1/4, and it becomes a 4/4 if you have 7 or more lands. It's kind of like Sahagin in that it's a 2-drop that grows eventually. Its condition requires a lot less deck building. You just need to get to 7 lands. So it's kind of more of a blue-green card, or you could play it in blue-white because it's an artifact. I think this card is really solid. My games have been getting to 7 mana pretty consistently. And it works really well with Sahagin with Combat Tutorial, which is a blue common. It's 3 mana, draw 2 cards, put a counter on a creature you control. A counter is not quite a rectangle. So this isn't really the type of card that's do a normal blue thing, get a bonus rectangle, but it's rectangle adjacent. And really adds to the idea that like blue might be exceptional in the set because it's doing something that blue normally doesn't do. So it's good with like these offensive blue bodies, or maybe not even offensive, but like cheap-ish blue bodies. So turn 2 Sahagin, turn 3 combat tutorial, you have a 2/4, you've drawn 2 cards. That's good. Making your Scorpion Sentinel a 2/5 on turn 3 is fantastic. An extra counter is great on evasive bodies like Dragoon's Wyvern. I think these 4 cards, these 3 creatures plus combat tutorial, are kind of the bread and butter of why blue is a notch stronger than it usually is in this format. And then we can talk about blue's instant speed package too. So blue gets a bunch of good instants in this set. So it gets Ice Magic, which is like the bounce spell or top or bottom spell. It gets Syncopate, the counter spell. Stuck in Summoner's Sanctum is 3 mana, kind of like flash, tap a creature down, keep it tapped aura. I don't think the card's like amazing. It's a little better than I thought it was going to be going in, but it does play well at instant speed. And the linchpin to all of this is Dreams of Laguna, which is that Think Twice variant. Dreams is really what ties it together. We just saw in Foundations that Think Twice, just straight up Think Twice, is still good enough in 2024 or 2025. And it just plays so well with your other instants to be able to flashback or cast Dreams of Laguna with your open mana if your opponent doesn't play into your counter spell, doesn't do anything into your bounce spell. I think Dreams is a very, very good blue common. It's definitely behind Dragoon's Wyvern. I think it's behind Combat Tutorial, but it's in that upper echelon. Another blue card I've been liking is Magic Damper, which is functional reprint of Shore Up. It's single blue instant. Target creature gets +1/+1 and hexproof, untap it. This kind of card depends on how good blue is at playing a assertive mid-range or tempo game. And like I said, blue in this set has some great creatures. So protecting your souped up Sahagin is excellent. Protecting your Dragoon's Wyvern from a removal spell is excellent. Protecting a creature you've suited up a bunch of equipment on is excellent. It's going to get worse if you're in like a blue control deck rather than a blue mid-range deck, but I love this type of card. I'm playing the first copy in almost every blue deck. And I'm going to round out the episode touching on a blue uncommon. I mostly talked about blue's commons because I think that's really what makes blue interesting. Blue's uncommons are pretty straightforward. Like the top ones are not hard to understand why they're good. There's like Eject, which is 4 mana, can't be countered, return something to its owner's hand and draw a card. Or it's got like this 2 mana, 2/1 flyer Pixie that surveils when it attacks. Like those are standard blue uncommons that are like always overperformers. The one that I've been getting super late is Swallowed by Leviathan, which is 3 mana instant, choose target spell, surveil 2, then counter the chosen spell unless its controller pays 1 for each card in your graveyard. You should not think of this as a conditional counter spell. If you cast this on turn 3, you have nothing in your graveyard, you're guaranteed to have at least one thing to bin. Like you can surveil something into your graveyard. This has never been a conditional counter spell for me. It's always been a hard counter. And the surveil value is so good. And also it's single pipped. Usually your 3 mana counters, when they're really good like this, like unconditional, are double pipped, like cancel or refute. This one being single pipped and you get a little something extra is so good. This card is incredible. I think it's one of the top uncommons in the set. I've been wheeling it pretty consistently, which should not happen. I think people read it and say, oh, this is like 3 mana quench. And no, this is just 3 mana cancel with upside and single pip. So stop passing this card, or please keep passing it to me. And that's kind of all I have to say about blue so far in this format. It's day 2. It's quite early. I'm itching to get some more experience, hop back in the queues tonight. I will say that sets where blue is very strong, where you're going to be drafting blue a lot, the gameplay is very, very difficult. I've had a really hard time knowing when to tap out to cast like my Dragoon's Wyvern versus like hold up a Syncopate. Like those decisions are very difficult. I would recommend thinking hard when you're playing the games, if you're not thinking hard already, because I've found those kind of decisions to be very, very crucial to nail. Like if you tap out on the wrong turn, you can lose the game because of that immediately. So good luck. I do want to mention I'm going to be at MagicCon Vegas in 2 weekends from when this podcast will release. I'm going to be doing the Saturday PTQ and then just kind of hanging around doing drafts the rest of the weekend. So come say hi if you've been listening and want to. I will be the tall white guy with long hair and a beard. So I'm sure there can't be that many more of those types of people there. So I should be easy to spot. If you have a certain card, a certain deck that you'd like me to touch on in a future episode for Final Fantasy, you can post at me on Blue Sky at sampratt.bsky.social. You can message me on Discord at samp6. And I have been streaming occasionally at samp_mtg, mostly Thursday nights, though it's going to be quite a busy June for me, so don't expect too many. Thanks for listening. Enjoy Final Fantasy, and I will see you next week.